By the time FDR had been elected into office in 1932 and finally took office in March of 1933, the American people had been struggling in the Great Depression since 1929. When he finally gives his inauguration address in 1933, his address states, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." This is going to be something that the American people had not heard since the beginning of the Great Depression, and is going to give many of them a lot of hope moving forward. When it came to public relations, FDR was one of the best. He was very good at communicating with the American people in a way that they could all easily understand instead of using big, complicated words. He often used what were called fireside chats. These were public radio addresses that he used to explain the problems that we had and also explained his solutions. He was very careful to only use plain language and to really explain the issues to the American people so they would be comfortable moving forward. This is similar to when the President of the United States today gives a speech on the television. When FDR was taking office, he knew that the old ideas were not going to solve this great problem. So he was very willing to experiment with many different solutions to these problems. He brought together many different experts in their fields and was very willing to listen to their ideas and brought a lot of them together to come up with these solutions. It was most definitely a group effort for FDR. He was even very unique in that he relied on his wife, the First Lady, Eleanor Roosevelt, as an advisor. Where FDR actually had suffered from polio and could not move around like he wanted to, he relied on Eleanor Roosevelt to go to the American people to see what was going on and report back to him. This was very important. She was very active in the process. His brain trust was a group of leading professors and experts in their fields that brought them their ideas about how they could best fix this depression. His first 100 days in office are what we refer to as his first 100 days in office. We call it this because he was able to push through a lot of legislation with the help of the Democratic-controlled Congress during his first term in office. This is when he gets many of his first alphabet soup programs passed that we're going to talk about in a few minutes. The first New Deal, as we call it, was designed for 3 R's: relief, recovery, and reform. The relief programs are going to be immediate action that was taken to help Americans and to stop the economy's deterioration. Recovery programs were all going to be temporary programs that were designed to restart the flow of the consumer demand to get our economy moving again. Reform programs were more permanent programs that were created to avoid another depression and ensure that Americans never faced a similar economic disaster. These are the 3 R's. And when you look at his programs that he created, they usually all fit into one or more of these 3 R's. He relies very heavily on a practice called deficit spending. This is where the government will spend more money than they are actually bringing in. The purpose behind this was something we call pump priming. The idea was that we had to put enough money into the government's tank. If you think of it kind of like a gas tank, so that there would be enough money to jumpstart the economy and get it running again. If there was nothing in the tank, so to speak, it would not be able to crank and start running again. When FDR takes office, the banks were in a total crisis. They were in a disaster. Many of them were having to close their doors because they were in such a ruined shape. So one of the first things that FDR does is calls for a bank holiday. He closed all banks, so people could not go in, they could not make deposits, but they also could not withdraw money from the bank. All of these quick withdrawals were causing banks to have to close their doors permanently. When that happened, people lost all of their money if they hadn't invested in that particular bank. In order to close these banks, he declared it a bank holiday so that he could send in investigators to find out what was happening inside those banks, look at the practices that they were using, and then to try to fix those problems so that it wouldn't happen again.